We'll start learning the Priyat Chaim. Shai Chag HaMatzos. Okay. B'kitzur, what the AriZal is going to talk about, is this idea of Galus Hadas, that really the Zohar already writes that the entire idea of Galus Mitzrayim, the whole idea of Galus Mitzrayim was Galus HaDibur. That Dibur speech was in a state of Galus. It means that it was not able to be properly expressed. And that the Dibur was not able to be expressed correctly. So this is the idea of like there's the Meitzar Garan. Mitzrayim comes from the word Meitzar Garan. Meitzar Garan means the constriction of the throat. So it means a person has a machshava, a thought, and they cannot express it properly into their heart, and from the heart it cannot be expressed outwardly. So there's some type of constriction. What you know in your mind doesn't necessarily mean that you feel in your heart. What you feel in your heart doesn't necessarily mean that you have an understanding of it. So there's a pkak, there's a disconnect, there's a discrepancy. Exactly, there's discrepancy. So das, what is das? On one level, the Zohar calls das mafteach shis. That das is really what opens up the door that opens up a person's midas. That means that a person could understand something. Let's say a person says, "I understand the famous mashal, for example, of this story. It's Chassidish mashal, is that there was once a peasant boy that didn't understand how to read, and he was learning in yeshiva or something. I don't know if he was a peasant boy, he was learning yeshiva. Anyways, he was away from his house, and he receives a letter, and the letter basically says that his father passed away. But he doesn't know how to read, so he goes to the Chacham of the city, and the Chacham, the wise person that reads the letter, tells him all the story, and the letter says, your father died. All of a sudden, the little boy starts crying. So, and the person that read the letter is the one that understands the letter, right? But he doesn't cry. The person that started crying is the person that's attached to the story. So das is the person that's m'schaber. Das represents like an intimacy, a chibur. Okay, so that you really become connected to something. So there's between seichel and midas, between intelligence and emotions, the das is mafteach shis, so it opens up the person's emotions, because the person can understand. But if that's why a cotton is a lav bar das. A cotton doesn't have das. A cotton could be a big bar seichel, it can be a very intelligent person. Sometimes you can have a 10-year-old boy that's smarter than a 50-year-old man, it's true. But not necessarily, they don't have necessarily to have das. The das is the ability to connect with this information, that I understand it, and I internally understand it. It's in a pneumistic level, I really understand what I'm thinking about. So this is what das is. And once a person has das, there's many different forms of das, but you have das, so das creates havdalah, the das havdalah menayin, which means it allows you to discern, to make distinctions, to say, okay, so therefore, because I understand it internally, what it really means, so therefore I can make this choice or that choice. That's why das generally is das chachma, das chesed, das bina, das gvura. That's why das is divided into two. If you ever look at your tefillin, you'll see that sometimes on one side of your tefillin there's 3, shin with 3, and one time there's shin with 4, and they correspond to the chachma bina das, because that's kesser you're wearing on your head, chachma bina das. So those are 3 levels of intelligence, but Chachma Bina could also be Das Chesed, Das Gvura. What does that mean, Das Gvura? Because when you're making a choice, you have 2 choices. Not generally, always. You can make 2 choices. There's variations between these 2 choices, but there's a choice either to do or not to do. So Chesed means to mispashet, or to not to be mispashet, that you're not going to do. So Das Chesed, Das Gvura, right? So this is the 4 madregas of Seichel, 3/4 madregas of Seichel. So this is what Das is. So das is mafchen, das is mafrid. Das also means misyached, it's yichud, right? What?
Vav is das, so Vav has all these powers.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Vav is das, in the name of Hashem.
Why is
so,
Vav das?
What?
Where is Vav das? Where do you see it?
It's tam shacham, from seichel. Right, it's sometimes it's mentioned that. Yeah, the Vav is a chibur. So there are clouds to midas, but if you do yud k, so it's chesed, it's chachma bina, and the vav is already that's what's drawing down like the nekuda onto the midas. So this is what das is. Now das is connected to dibur. That's why when it says that v'hi adam nefesh chaya, a person became a living being. So Rashi says b'dibur b'deya. What does it mean to be a human being? It means to be able to reflect, to have das, not only to know, but to know, to really understand. Besides self-awareness, but to understand. And once a person knows, you can be magder something. You can define it, right? And you can say, well, yeah, but I'm saying, if I know what this is, then I can misdaber and say, this is this. If I don't have das, I can't be mafkid to say, what is this? It's a tree, it's a table, I don't understand. But if I have das, I have an intimate knowledge of what things are. So dibur is the koich, and dibur does the same thing. Dibur is mafkin, and dibur is mafrid. This is the same thing, the koich dibur. So it's a connected. These two things are connected. What we call this, that's the idea of das. Now das is a very big word. It can mean a lot of different things. What's das? Das can mean a lot of things. Das can mean, like I say, adam yada is chava. So das means like an interpersonal relationship. Like let's say when there's a chesaron of das, or there's a breaking apart of das. It can mean there's a period in a family relationship. That's also a broken das. That's also one story of the whole story of going on into Mitzrayim. The whole story of going to Mitzrayim is that Bishvil that Yishana Bonim and Abonim. The Gemara says in the beginning of Shabbos because Yaakov gave a garment that was a little more expensive, and that caused a friction between the brothers in the sale of Yosef, right? And that's the whole story of Yedidus Mitzrayim, of Yosef Mitzrayim, is because there was friction, which is a breaking apart of the family. And that's why a tikkun for that is selaboyas, a tikkun for the whole thing. And they call it Ben Yerushal Tashlechu, that Pari wanted to be mafrid the bias, the base Yehudi, that's what really wanted to do, right? If there's no Jewish men, then the family falls apart.
Also, the first voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe wasn't the voice of his father to him.
Yes, that's correct.
That's
correct.
So
let me say, this is not even the beginning. So this is das, what?
Saying the das,
yeah.
In the simple way, maybe to understand it, I'm trying
yeah.
to understand it right, is when you have the idea, but in order to make it happen, you have to be able to
communicate it, yes. And also communicate it to yourself. That's a chibur. Yeah, and correct. So I'm saying that when there's no das, when you say there's a lack of das, das can be a das in terms of an interpersonal relationship. So you say that, and that's why a lot of things that we do in Pesach and the Seder is for a tikkun of das. How do you do a tikkun of das? It's selabois. You say you have to dafke the abor bon and divatayr. You have to have all your children around, even the echad rasha, which is you're creating a tikkun for das. And karpos has to do with the tikkun for das according to Rabbeinu Menach. There's a lot of things of this idea where you're trying to create a tikkun. This is das on a very external level, right? That there's a relationship, that I have good relationship with other people. Then there's das of das is atzmacha. Yeah, there's self-awareness. And then there's an awareness which is not separate, but is awareness of the Eibishter. Das l'kei vicha. So this is a different day madrega das. And the whole concept of Galus Mitzrayim is the idea teda kigei years achad. That means the idea teda, the das itself will be in a state of Galus. Okay, so now we understand a little bit. Let's see what the Lashon Ari. So the kitzur, let's go very quickly because it's in your Pesach we see it's in Simon. Ki Arishonim Sukkah Shechina Adru Kira Zayin. So the Medrash says that there was a stalkus Shechina from the Chet Eitz Adas till Avram Avinu till 7 madregas. And then Avram Avinu till Moshe Rabbeinu is called Shvin Chavivim was drawn down back the Shechina Lamata. Amun Yisol Shabbai Sador Shoyu Begolus Mitzrayim Hoyesoid Oisin Etzaitzin Shakari Sheitzim Adam Rishon Ba'oisei Kuf Lamet Shana V'hem Soid Der Admavul. Okay, and the Mashchis of Shana then becomes Der Aflog, etc. That the Nekuda, the root of the Neshamas that existed in Mitzrayim came from a Chesaron. It's a chesaron in das. Why is it a chesaron in das? Because en kishel das. So it means in order for there to be a moitzah zera, there has to be das. But the das was carried, right? So what's pshat the das was carried? It means that it wasn't a proper das. There was no other chava. There was no ishta. There was no relationship. So this is the kuf lamed shana that the Gemara says. In Erev, the Gemara says that Adam was nifred mi ishtoi. And the Gemara has just different opinions, is Adam Rishon Minhoya or whatever. There's different opinions, but according to one Chazal that he was nivra, all these type of mashchisim. What does mashchisim mean? Mashchisim means you're creating unfinished things that don't have a proper tzura, that because nothing was in skabel. and therefore this koyach of das that was unmetuken, that was not unrectified, these are the neshamas of the soul that came down eventually into Mitzrayim, and the whole idea is, and Moshe Rabbeinu was going to bring back das, and that's going to be the tikkun. This word from Priyat Chaim is more clear. Let's look in the Shar Kavanos, because there it's a little more clear and more written out. In your Pesach Tzitz Asayim Dush Aleph. Yeah. So because of that, there he goes that in a shtickle arichis to say that these are the neshamas that first went into their Mabel, and Shchisam and Ra is also carry, so it goes down to their Aflaga, and finally comes down into the door of and the tikkun is going to be the B'chemer L'Levenim is going to be in Mitzrayim. Amnom in the second column, Kuflam Mitzrayim. Amnom. What's the Chesadim Gvuras and Moichadas? We just said that Das itself has Chesadim and Gvuras, because there's Das Chesed and Das Gvura, right? So these neshamas come from this madrega of Chesed Gvura Moichadas. Kisham told us say that Zivuk. This is the marker of this connection between the Ish v'Ishtoi is the idea of Das. So neshamas are dafkin. There's neshamas are nivra. So there he is talking on two madregas. He's talking about on a cosmic level and a microcosmic level. On a cosmic level, kipshute, right? In order for there to be actually the birth of a child, there has to be a zivug pnimi, which is like a deeper level of zivug, which is the idea of das, and then kisha alul das. So in other words, there has to be das, some type of form of das. Now, if it's a proper, then the das connects on both levels, on the mashpia and the makabel. When it's not, and there's ashchas zer, then that's only das, but it's das shein metuken. When there's going to be in any, let's say differently, in any type of relationship between a mashpia and a makabel, any form of relationship between mashpia and makabel, you're always creating something. When there's a mashpia and makabel, that let's say I'm talking to you, so this analogy, one is the ish and one is the ishter. One is the isha. One you can call as the yisoid, and one is malchus. That's every single relationship. The person that's listening is the malchus. The person that's speaking is the yisoid. Every time there's a yichud between a mashpia and a makabel, there's always going to be something that's going to be nivra. This could be nivra, something that's positive, which we'll call this malachim, which means that you created, let's say, a positive shefa in this world. Or when a person is screaming at somebody and another person is listening and you're actually insulting someone, you're saying something that's negative, you're creating shadim, viruchas. That's the vart. In other words, in a very simple level, what you're doing is, sometimes you speak to someone and even after a half hour later, because you had a good conversation with someone, you're feeling very good towards this other person because you just created what in the Lashon Ari, you created positive malachim. So even though you're not speaking to the person now, it's already a half hour later, but in this relationship, you just created some positive malachim. And let's say you had necessarily not such a pleasant interaction with the person, and it could be even a few hours later, still because you just created shade and veruchim. So they now, and that's what's happening here. This is all on a zivug, that's a zivug chitzoini, which prat is that one is a mashpia, one is the makabel. It's called a zivug chitzoini. That's why malachim and niver and zivug chitzoini. Neshamas. Where did the neshamas come from? Neshamas come from when there's going to be a real zivuk pnimi on a micro level and on a macro level. In a micro level, when a person is physically misyached with another person, ish v'ishta, and then misyached, they can be boyer in the shamas. So every time there's zivuk, you're creating malachim, and according to that, you're even creating the shamas always. But it doesn't mean that the neshama will be revealed into a guf. But every time there's a zivuk pnimi, there's going to be a niver of a neshama. So that's what's being created through this. This is all when there's a correct das. So that it's knocking, it's moving together.
To be bored in Shemos is more on a rachnistic level than being bored.
But it's dafke in a way. It's more chitzoini. In other words, but it's more pnimi. meaning it's external, but it's deeper. Because it's external and deeper, that's why you can burn in the shamas.
What's the tzad and nukva on the yichud?
There's always a tzad and nukva in the
What
yichud.
is it? Is it das with das?
Yeah. Everything is Chasam going into das. Yeah. The yichud itself is the das. It's like you said in the malchus. The yichud itself is the das. That's what's happening. The das is what's happening. That's the yichud. So this is Gamma Yisrael Sham Shalder Hu Shal Moshe Rabbeinu V'Karnas Baritz Ledik Moshe B'Chinas Das. So Moshe himself. When was Moshe Nivra? So Vayikach Ishmael Beis Levi was Kuf Lamed Shana after Yecheved was right. Yecheved was 130 years. So what's but what's Kuf Lamed Shana? Kuf Lamed Shana corresponds to Kuf Lamed Shana of Adam Rishon. Meaning correct. In other words, that because there was Kuf Lamed Shana, that there was a period. So after there's 130 years, now it became a yichud, Ish Levi and Bas Levi. And that Moshe Rabbeinu, so Moshe Rabbeinu is the tikkun of that das that was nifrad. Moshe Rabbeinu is the bechinas das. V'chein kol ader hu bechinas hadas. The whole generation's das. God, it's not mentioned. It's a doidea, but it's not. The Ari doesn't mention it, but the Maram Pano says that for example, Melech Mitzrayim. With the oasis of Peiresh Ayin Hey, Pare is Gematia Das also, and Erev that is it's Das. In other words, everything is Das. It depends what kind of. There was a day on all levels. The question of what the Das is. You'll see soon what the Ari is going to say about it was a negative Das. So there's a negative Das, right?
Yocheved is born in between the Makomos, so it's almost like the Das.
Yeah, Ben Achonis. El Shem Yotzim will keep us the Sava, you better super carry. Bekal from the Shana Shavim, Koyin Mishnah Sheis. Ava Moshe ben Mechina Sheis, Atzmoi. Moshe is Moshe Sheis Hevel. Right? This is the tikkun of Moshe Sheis Hevel. So that right? Yisur is Kain. So Moshe Sheis Hevel means that Moshe is a tikkun of Sheis. Sheis after the Kuflam and Shana, Adam Rishon came back to Chava, and therefore there's never Sheis. L'chein Itmar Vater Oisei Gitoivu. What's Pshat the Toiv? We just said that Ra Be'enei Hashem by Dera Mabel, Ra refers to Zera Levatola. Ye'achar kulam noy l'sheis b'nusik v'tzalmoi. Aval acheim b'nusik sheidim v'ruchim lilim. Those were created clippers Dafke l'chein Amar Moshe aleim al er b'rasi. So Moshe said al er b'rasi by the story of the Shlav. Mayin libas. You don't have it, the page? No. It's Okay. Okay. Fine. What is it? What's the next page? The Kuf Mem Dalet. Okay, we'll skip ahead. Okay, so this is begin. Okay, that's the word. So up until the point, till Kuflam and Shana was together of the Kuflam and Shana of the Adam Rishon. After Adam Rishon was Mischaber with Chava was the begin of Sheis. And after the beginning of Sheis, so that's what Moshe Rabbeinu is Moshe. That's B'tzalmai. So there's Kain and Hevel was the prototype that didn't work out well, right? And then Kain obviously didn't work out. Hevel with Gamul Hivi was destroyed. I don't want to talk about there's a clip of Kain and a clip of Hevel. Both is a clip of Kain and a clip of Hevel.
Wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu guilty of Hevel?
So Moshe Rabbeinu is does it say Moshe Sheis Hevel. Which means really, but the Sheis is really what has the kiyum. Moshe is bechinas Hevel because he has to do with Mayim. Moshe and Mayim. You should see Moshe is connected like transcendence, Mayim Libasar, right? Okay, yeah, there's a lot of things. Yes, Chatzim Malach, Malach Chatzim Mata. But I'm just saying that what I really want to say is that he Sheis. What's Shadi Sheis? That he has the metukin of Koyach Hadas. That's what you have to know now. Okay, so he has the Koyach Hadas, and Moshe is the bechinas Hadas. So there's Mehamdus Amshichim different Amshachas. What is Moshe's Amshachah? That Moshe is Vayakov Moshe Kol Hadas B'nei Yisrael. So Vayakov Moshe gathers all the Yidden Kol Hadas. He gives them Deyat to Klal Yisrael. That's the Bechina of Moshe. Now V'hine Pare. So Pare Harasha. So what's Pare? Pare Macheshav Gadol. Macheshav Gadol Hoya K'Moshe. Hoya Ein K'Moshe. Pare the Gemara says that he was Amagushoy. He was Machashev. Who Amma, Masi Amma, Zikne Amma. V'yadu Chachmasi. What did Pare know? This is the God of the same lashon that uses about Haman. When you talk about these what we call archetypes in the Torah, so they're not just people. They are people, of course. They're physical people, but they also represent something that's much larger. So these are like Pare represents this quality. The Pari actually, Yada B'Chumasi, they actually know that he's aware, wasn't aware. It's not negay. Through him, this Bechina came out in the world. This is what. No, the good people, they were instruments of their own Bechira. The Pari didn't have Bechira over here. Chabad didn't slave Pari. So even the good people on some level. But let's say talk about the Rishoyim of this. We're saying that this person represents this Machat. What did he know? In other words, what's the Koyach HaKlippa? What do they know? Not that they know, but what actually is the system? How does this work?
He says, Lo Yoda as Hashem.
No, I understand. Lo Yoda, he can explain why Lo Yoda is Hashem. He doesn't know this Yoda. Yeah, Lo Yoda, he knows the Lakim. But let's go. Yoda Machmasa is Talkus Zah Kodesh. Why? So the word is like this. This is a whole. We have to go through this whole thing. Okay. So
we can follow along outside.
Okay, I have to go to another other shtickle over here like this. I have to go back a little. I'm just going to read you another shtickle. This is not going to get. In other words, when there's Maisach Tachtoinim, when the people's actions below affect the above in a certain way, and like the system is like all of a sudden not in its perfect state. There's a glitch in the system because of the glitch in man. What happens is that madrega, whatever where there's a glitch in that system, goes into a bechinas ibur. It moves into the higher state. So let's give this like an analogy. So a person's born, right? A person's born. You first exist in the state of ibur, which means in your potential, and then you're birthed out. And then this is what actually happens to Klal Yisrael, right? So they're in Mitzrayim, they're bechinas ibur, and then lekachas goy mekarev goy. That latest Klal Yisrael actually happened through Yitzias Mitzrayim, which means the ibur becomes from a place of potential and actually now it's projected into the actual. Now, in the state of this actual, let's say for example, let's say there's a, let's say you I don't know, I can give you a muscle for something, but I don't have a good muscle for this. So let's just try to think about it in the nimshal. There's a certain koyach in this world, right? And this koyach was supposed to go in this direction. That's the correct manner this koyach is supposed to go. Now we represent this koyach. So we'll say that Klal Yisrael, Tiferes Yisrael is Zohar Ampin. Is what's that koyach? The koyach is Zohar Ampin. We are the midas. Okay, we are the midas of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Chesed Gvur Tiferes Kaviyachol. Okay, we represent the midas. The midas Tiferes in general, which is Tiferes, but it's called Zohar Ampin, is also the name, a code word for the name Hashem. So when you have the yichud of, Kutcher Bichor Shchinte, Shem Hashem and Shem Elikim, that's a yichud between Zohar Ampin and Malchus. Adnos. Okay. So you have, that AriZal doesn't talk about Elikim, this and this, but this is the idea. So we represent, so you see we're talking about one level, the Zohar Ampin. We're saying we're representing Zohar Ampin, and Zohar Ampin is actually is HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol. It's Shem Hashem, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So when this koyach, if let's say we mess up Zah, what's that we mess up Zah? What does that mean that we mess up Zah? So you have Chachma Bina Das, and then you have Chesed Gvur Tiferes Netzach Yisod. In other words, what does that mean? That when we're mischaber to the Das, the higher level of Das, which means when we're living our ultimate way of living, and we're connected to our purpose, and so there's an understanding of the purpose, and then we're actually living the purpose. There's an acknowledgement of that purpose. We have a chibur to that space of Das, that cosmic space of Das. Then our midas are reflected in a positive way. Then our chesed is correct. This is on a very simple level. If you're in a good place, then your midas are in a correct place, right? If I understand if I understand what I'm doing in this world, or at least for these few moments, I understand what I'm doing, so I do them correctly. I express myself correctly. I know I need to build this building now, right? So I don't have I have moichin. I understand what I have to be doing now. So now, if I have a worker, I'm not going to scream at the worker because I know it's going to be counterproductive. I'm going to figure out a way to help this worker go do it. In other words, my midas are going to be in a perfect state if I really understand the moichin. The moment I lose the moichin, that's when all my midas get out of control. You're following the analogy? So let's say you're talking about on a ruchnistic level. If I'm connected to the das, the higher level of das, and I'm Zohar Ampin, then my midas is perfect expression. It's chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is being revealed. The Geula of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is being revealed through me. Now, when Klal Yisrael lost the other day that Das itself was in a state of Galus, so therefore, Klal Yisrael did not understand, have a hakara a yediyah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. L'man yedu, ki ani Hashem b'karev haaretz is not the tafkid and the purpose of the makkos was not only for Parei, but also for Klal Yisrael. That Klal Yisrael should have a bigger asag in the Eibishter. I have a higher understanding. That's the whole kavanah of the makkos work. So when Klal Yisrael doesn't have that, Zohar Ampin is in a state of danger. Why Zohar Ampin? Because Zohar Ampin is the midas, and the midas then flow into Malchus. Okay, so you have Zohar Ampin and Malchus. Malchus would be what receives from Zohar Ampin, right? So this is the madrega. You go from Das to Zohar Ampin to Malchus. Now, if Zohar Ampin is switched into the wrong direction, now Malchus is going to receive from Zohar Ampin in a very incorrect manner. You're following this analogy? So something has to be done, or this is the way the AriZal sets up the system. The system is that it short circuits kaviyachol, and what happens when it short circuits the system is that Zohar Ampin goes into a bechina of ibur, which means it restarts. It goes back into its original state that it existed when before it became revealed, because everything goes from a state of ibur to leda, right? So it goes back into the bechinas ibur. So now Zohar Ampin is actually hidden. So Zohar Ampin is actually hidden. There's actually no revealing of Hashem, because Hashem is Zohar Ampin. You're following? So in other words, now there's taka no revealing of Hashem's presence in this world. What is revealed in Hashem's presence in the world is Elokim, because Malchus is revealed, but not Hashem any longer. So that's what happened. That's what's called the Ibur. It's plus kala plus. It like everything reverts back to the state before. So let's say the Naihi Netzachai Yisayid goes back into Chesed Gevurah Tiferes. Chesed Gevurah Tiferes goes on Chacham Bin Adas. You understand? Everything reverts back into its state. So there shouldn't be a leakage. What's called the Yenika Lechitzonim. Okay, this is the Oisius. So let's go back into Parshas. Parshas, so what do you know? He's stalked Zohar Kodesh. The Chizras Lekanis beside the Ibur Toich Imeilah. He understood that Zohar Ampin now, because there's now Klal Yisrael were not in the correct state because they didn't have Das, so therefore Zohar Ampin was not in the correct state. So Zohar Ampin, the cosmic Zohar Ampin, reverts back into Imeilah, goes back into its original mother, which is like even higher than Das, because there's no Das. It goes back into Ima, goes back into Bima. And now he realizes that Shem Hashem is not Shalom Ba'olam. Therefore he's Kafar Be'ikr. Why is Moshe he was Kafar Be'ikr? He understood they were not yearning from Klippa from Shem Hashem. Why? Because Shem Hashem is not revealed in this world. What's up, Mia Hashem Eshmer Koyle? Who's Hashem? I don't know. Who's the Havaya? I don't know the Havaya. There's no Hashgacha. That Shem Hashem is not Mizgal. You tell me that Hashem told me you should take the Klal Yisrael Mitzrayim. There's no Hashem now. Kaviyachol. Because now Hashem is Bechinas Ibur. That's the whole problem of Mitzrayim.
In other words, there can't be Benes, nothing.
Correct. That's correct. There's no Nisim. That's what he's saying. There can't be a Nes. There can't be Shem Havaya. There can't be a Gilul Shem Havaya.
Is that a chiddush of Parei that you can affect the Kadosh Baruch Hu through?
No. We know he didn't affect the Kadosh Baruch Hu. We did.
No, through affecting Klal Yisrael.
No. Gavur Ketil Kali. No, we created Galus. Therefore, Parei was able to have control over us.
Because of Yosef and the brothers?
There's many different reasons. Whatever Chazal giving a reason, there can be different reasons. In other words, Parei is just an instrument that our actions. Yeah, there's a whole arichas for this in Nefesh HaChaim about the Churban bias.
Did Parei understand this?
Not conscious. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know if that's the Vort. The Vort does not have the conscious. In other words, Parei's. There was no awareness now because Klal Yisrael. Right. Yosef already told him, and he said, Alakim, I understand. He says, after Alakim was revealed to me, in other words, because now what happens is the Zohar goes from Bechinas Ibur, so now what's being revealed is only the most extreme levels. Okay, weiter. We have the next page? Yeah. Kuf Mem Zayin. Okay, we'll look to Kuf Mem Zayin. Okay. Being a parah, Kiki, and Shaza, and Nika Barabucha. The Bechor. Hay Chazal Lesalam Toichem beside the Ibur, Shechazram Lo Yachsel Kemusalis Galus, lots is Chutz Mebeten Ilah, you understand what we say, right? It's not going to be revealed. Vaydekein in Bnei Yisrael Matachtoin and Karim Yisrael Ashmoishel Zah. Yisrael is called Zah. Where's Zah? Hanika, so Gam Yishu Begolas Ech Mitzayim. Kivin Yisrael El Yinashel Teleim is Bata Chasram Mitzusay. Zah Zas. The Midas, Zah Rampim. L'chein shalach Hashem Zohar Chadei Moshe. Koyamar Hashem B'nei B'chor Yisrael. L'Rames. Why does Hashem tell Moshe Rabbeinu to go? Koyamar Hashem says B'nei B'chor Yisrael. L'Rames Ala Ben B'chor El Yanik Yisrael. Ki Kiyum Akayim. V'lo Yinaz Bata Chas Hashem. That B'nei B'chor Yisrael that there will be a birth of Klal Yisrael. V'yidi Kilifisha Kafir Mitzusah L'chein Yibnet. No, there still is, but there'll be a birth. There'll be a birth of B'nai B'chor Yisrael. Exactly. Now it's like an Ibur, but it's eventually become a birth of Klal Yisrael. Okay. This is what Dari wants to say. Is there anything else from there? Do we go weiter? One more piece. Kuf Mem Ches. Okay. Yeah.
I think it was a Vidak.
Yeah, V'nimtzak. Let's finish the last shtickle. V'nimtzak, Inu Galus, Gulas, and Geulas, Galus, Mitzrayim. Hoyadei Nes Gadomoy. Why was it Nes Gadomoy? Because Zohar Ampin was not ready to be, Zohar Ampin was V'chinas Ibur, which means that we were in a concealed state. So what happened?
Is it Chesar in Zah, or is that the Malchus is not ready to be Makabel, and that's why Zah has to...
No, the Malchus is not going to be because Zah is in a problem. The Malchus we receive if Zayar Apple would be in this gala in the correct manner, the Malchus would be ready with Kabul. There wasn't a Chesar in the Malchus. But doesn't say this was not the Chesar in the Malchus here. Here the Zayar Apple was Bechinas Ibur. What had to be done now, the Iker that had to be done now had to be the birth of Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael had to go through some type of transformation to get from Bechinas Ibur to Bechinas Das. Once they're Bechinas Das, they'll express themselves correctly. If they're expressing themselves correctly, then Malchus will automatically let them out of Galus. So what triggers this process? In other words, so this is the Gulas Mitzrayim. The Gulas Mitzrayim is Nes Gadol. What induces this birth? Then Gedulas Nes Yitzis Mitzrayim. Ki hini am Mitzrayim par kol kach achuzim b'shashim linik min adas alin zah ad shegam lachzeh zah b'soy the ibur b'soy gimel kol b'gimel that it goes back into its original state. Netzachoy Yisoy goes back in Chassid Gevur Teferes. Chassid Gevur goes to Chassid Chacham Bin Adas. She bechinas b'chachas amiyat v'groin she'en l'matim menu. Hutzach hamatzal elyon lachzir lohoyle the zah. This is what? Rebirth. So this is what happens. And this is what happens on the Leil Seder. That the Leil Seder is like Dila B'tachas Achashal is God. She's battle. Yinikas Chalim Shalom Machmas. A toike for Oira Gadol who. Okay, Yotzim Megalusay. What actually happened was that Klal Yisrael was Halol Aved Zara, Halol Aved Zara. In other words, we were not ready for this process. We were Bechinas Ibur. We didn't have this das, but we were injected with a godless that was revealed to us. It's sometimes you're not in a good place. Let's say in your own life, you're not in a good place, your midas are not knocking, you don't have a das, you don't understanding, and sometimes you come into an experience, an induced experience that's not from you. Let's say you see something, you read something, you learn something happens outside of you, and you say, oh! And even though you don't go through the whole process, and you don't understand exactly how this is supposed to work, but in an instant, you can get out of your whole galus. The Surus L'Eila, that's why the Yitzis Mitzrayim is completely a Surus L'Eila, something that comes out completely on its own. This is Bekitzer in the Oasis of the Ari. This is the idea of the process of Galus, the process of Angula, right? The process of exile and redemption is. This is the. Let's say one saying. Wait a second. No, because once we leave Mitzrayim, essentially Pasha, now we become Chayers Be'etzem, and we have but we had Galus. So that's what lahazig g'dolim alaktanim. In other words, maybe you're taka holding in Katnus, but you came from Galus. You were birthed in Galus already. You were already. You have Yitzis Mitzrayim. Once you had already Yitzis Mitzrayim in your DNA, now you can't complain and say, "Oh, my Zohar, I don't feel the midas. I have to do das." We can have access to this, and we're going to say soon. We'll see how this works. That you can have instant access to everything that you need in your life. Not instant gratification, so instant access to the place where you have
gratification.
No, that's the klippa side. That's the klippa side.
But there were still like 10 stages, right, with the Makkos.
That's before. No. In season time, they have to go through the Makkos. Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
I mean,
No, but the
there still had to be
Yitzhak,
some sort of
the Yitzhak, the birth itself was the 1 second. That's correct. Here's the Galus. This is from Oyer Chachma from Talmid Al Shem. Calls them Achash and Nishgal Depar. The next page, Reish Zayin Oyer Chachma.
Yours is Reish Gimel, but
What? I have.
in your
Oh
volume.
yeah. Oh, that's the problem. The Galus calls them Achash and Nishgal Depar. Shikha. Pare is Shikha is Oyref, which means that's the opposite of Das. Here he says Gomli so Shikha Das Leboyer called. This is actually he's blaming actually Pare. So a little bit like you're saying also, but maybe it's a mix between both things. So Pare represents the Oyref, the backside. So if Das is over here, Kavilu, if the Moicha Das is like the frontal lobes, the front of the brain, so the Koicha Shikha is the Oyref. So that's like the backside. So the backside, they're two opposite sides. So the Panim represents the place of Schira, the place of remembrance, and the Shikha is the Klippa. Right? So this is why the beginning actually of Yosef, you read this Yosef and he goes another 2 years, is so that the Zohar says that what's the Loizacher Sarah Mashkin Vishkechei? Loizacher Sarah Mashkin, then remember him, Vishkechei, and he forgot him, it's the same thing. So Loizacher Sarah Mashkin, why? Because it was Oil Mashikha. Because that's Oil Mashikha. Because Pare, the sorry Pare, are Oil Mashikha. Loizacher Sarah Mashkin, why? Because it was a world of Shikha. Shikha, forgetfulness, and not talking about Alzheimer's or a person just forgets what they ate yesterday. I'm talking about an intentional forgetfulness of a kavana, what's your tachlis in this world, and but we can start from indifference and eventually forget that the bechal isn't something to be indifferent to, like you just lost focus. Yeah, you don't know that there's something happening here. This is the idea of the oil. That's the backside. So the klipa pare is that vakein hoy daitem begol daitem live the das of his goals. Vadibur yevshel daber elim lo bedas. So Dibur and Deya, that they're connected with your speak and your das. This is what the AriZal was saying. There had to be Gilam Nisim Chudashim. In other words, in order for there to be a reawakening of the Zohar Amp, and you need something extraordinary to happen. Correct. You need something a different way to deal with the system. The system was not working. Okay, he says that was not fully realized until they went into the Midbar, which is the place of Dibur, proper Dibur. That's what Midbar is like Dibur. Shamati. So here we have the idea of Das. Now what's Das? We said there's three types of Das. There's a das, all the other is chava, which is like an interpersonal relationship that a das that a person has between one person and another person. Yeah, an I and it, exactly, an I and it. No, it's higher than that. And then there is a das, which is a das asatzmecha. Then there's a das lekevicha. So there's a das of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you see in the Torah of Baal Shem, there's going to be a lot of Lashonis, and he moves back and forth from which the idea of Das is. But this is a Torah from the Baal Shem HaKadosh, Shamati, in the Toldos, Parshas Vayishlach.
What were the three types?
Das is interpersonal. I have a relationship with you. That's what me and you. Huh?
I and you.
Oh, I
and you and I and thou.
Not I and thou. We don't say I and thou. We say no.
I and it.
I and I.
That's how I heard it.
I know it's no. I know where it comes from, but it's, we have a better version.
I and it.
I and no. I and it is an object. That's not considered a relationship. And it is an object.
Oh, so
I with I. It's not I and I. It's I.
Ah.
I with you, and then I and I. That's a higher level than I and thou. I and I is my ani with your ani. The small I with the great I.
Oh, so I and then
You
I
follow?
with you and then I and with I.
There's one I.
I have two, but
No, you have to
Yeah,
speak. There's no relationship with yourself. It's I.
I.
Okay, I. Then I have a relationship with you. It's I and you. Then I have a relationship with the boyer, which is I and I.
Right.
It's small I and capital I. It's the small ani and the big ani. There was another person that said something different, but so that's what I'm trying to say. I halte the besser, the I and I. That is the I and thou. Well, it's misverstanden. Shamati and Moiri. Kini Galus Mitzrayim. The idea of Galus Mitzrayim is as follows. What was the chesarn of das? We talk about there's a chesarn of das. What was the chesarn of das? There was an absence of das. to understand that there was one boira. This boira is constantly creating every single moment new. So what had to happen? Moshe, what did Moshe do? Al yedei hanisim she'asav v'nisparsim ba'olam sheyesh boira echad hamachadish tamid. What's the purpose of the Nes? This is the tachlis. The purpose of the Nes. The purpose of the where's this? This is Shemos Tazayin. The purpose of the Nes is to reveal Ani Hashem, but it's no. It seems the chiddush of the word of the the chiddush of the Nes, the miracle, is to reveal. You're saying that you're revealing the boyer. What's the nest? What does the nest do? The nest is a yechudistic act, is a particularity that reveals on the cloud, right? It's lamed akol kol kula yatsa. That means the kavana of the nest is not to say the world works like this. Then there's an extraordinary event that says this. Therefore, this extraordinary event shows that there's something that has a power over this thing. That's not what the Baal Shem Tov is writing. He's saying, if you read closely, he's saying, the Nes reveals that nature is miraculous. You need something extraordinary to reveal that the ordinary is extraordinary.
Why is it not?
Exactly. Because when I look at the world, I say there's an ordinary world. That means there's a manifest world. This is the way it has to function. This is the normative reality. And then something extraordinary happens. Something miraculous says, okay, this is extraordinary. This is outside the normative reality of creation. Here we're saying what the Baal Shem is saying, that you want to have really das, and it's not really das, because if the experience is outside the normative experience of life, then it's not really das, because das means that you're intimate with this thing. There's intimacy with it. Intimacy means I'm intimate with the table. I'm not intimate with a miraculous event, right? Because if it's just a miracle that's extraordinary out of nature, then it's not really full das. The only way I could say that it has full das, if the das is something that's mukhshi. That's why we say adam yodas chava, because the das is the most mukhshistic thing. If you say I know this thing, I physically know it, that's really mukhshistic. If I can have our kara mushchis. If I can have a physical, tangible, visceral sensation of Hashem's presence in this world, I can have das of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is a boira. How does that happen? When there's a miracle that comes, and what does the miracle come? It's be'erech what the Ramban writes and the Parshas boy. Menisma giluim to the nisim sheina giluim. But the kavanah, what the Baal Shem is saying is, the extraordinary event reveals that every ordinary event is actually extraordinary. Why? Because it's mechadish b'chud. It's a mechadish tamid, which means that the world actually says non-existence, and the fact that it is existing, that is the greatest miracle. Right? The greatest miracle is existence, not that existence can change. That from non-being becomes being. That's the greatest miracle. So when we see something that reveals the non-being of things, the transcendence of things, that only reveals to us that the being itself is a miraculous, right? So the greater than Kriyas Yamsuf is the Bria, right?
But that's not the definition of Chadash V'Tiva. Chadash V'Tiva means that every minute.
Right, because it's a chiddush. That's right. Because why is it a chiddush? No, but why?
If you have das and you
exactly. So what's the chiddush? Why is it a chiddush? In other words, if I'm creating something yesh miyesh, I don't need a chiddush.
Right.
The only reason why it needs to be a chiddush is because yesh ma'ayin. So it's yesh ma'ayin tamid. Yesh ma'ayin tamid means that it's a miraculous event every single second. So now you change the yesh, the water. This is Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya and Shayichud. The water goes from one direction to a different direction. Okay, that's one yesh to another yesh. But the whole water exists. B'chal is a bigger miracle. So this is the das, the awareness of Hashem's presence in the immediacy of creation, because the immediacy of creation is the greatest miracle. The nukva.
Is it like there's no recreation? It's already created.
No. There's no creation.
It's already here.
No. There's nothing here. It's always becoming.
Wow.
No, there's no time. It's not time. It's no time.
It's already here. So now it's yesh mayesh.
No. Okay, we'll talk about that, but not as nicht das way. Yeah.
Separate. That sheyesh boy meaning is they knew one thing but not.
No. It's the same thing. Same thing. When they had an akara, the boira.
So they thought that the world is just.
No, they thought Elikim. That's what you say. That's why you have to lead. You have to word AriZal. They thought that Elikim Stava. In other words, because they were Bechinas Ibur, right? And what was Bechinas Ibur mean? And like Dari explains that when there's Bechinas Ibur, the only Gilui is a Gilui of Elikim. That's why this three Sarei Pare represents the three levels of Elikim, which means they were revealing Elikim, which means Elikim is nature. It's a natural world. It's a world. Hashem created. There's a world that's created. Yesh Ma'ayin. Yeah, but it exists. What was revealed to them through this miraculous events of the Makis was revealed to them that there's a boira that's infinite, and therefore this boira that's infinite is and that's the creation is a continuous miracle. Everything's an S. Exactly. Everything's
This is what the Marcus word is.
Correct.
Opposite things that happen.
Correct. 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 Yeah, correct.
Like the trachea, the breathing pipe in and out, but the lungs is like it's self-generating. It's self-generating air in a certain way.
That's B'chadash Tuvim. Yeah.
And also like the Alter Rebbe not wanting to do a Kiddush Levana.
Right, Daf Kapitava, same word.
He wanted to come through.
Right, correct, exactly. The same word.
The person has in mind quickly that he reverts back. He gets rid of his own das.
Yes, he's going to connect the Shem Elikim. He's not connecting the Shem Elikim.
And now he's back to Ibur. He has to start over.
That's correct. Yeah.
In the negative too.
Correct. Yes. There's living in the now also, or for the now.
And Yosef's also Mechusher to Nakim Nashani Elokim
And Efrani, correct.
He's the first one experiencing Galus, and
Correct.
that creates two names: a forgetting name and a remembering name.
Okay, yes. Amnon Bechinas Das. Okay, let me learn a bit weiter. Amnon Bechinas Das. She's Galus inside me Das the Nukva. What's Das the Nukva? That means that it was in the middle of the Baal Shem. Daf Yira. It says page Aleph. Yeah. That Amnon Bechinas Das. She's Galus inside me Das the Nukva. This is only Das the Nukva. That's the Nukva means that it was Noshim Daikim Kalas, which means that it was not a das that was anchored. Kalas doesn't mean feeble, it means floaty, which means that you can have it today and gone tomorrow. That's the idea of Kalas. Ach das the Duchra is Gal also Mashiach. The ultimate would be revealed by Mashiach. We'll talk about this in a second. There's a lot of oasis here. I don't know if I want to get into everything because the Baal Shem, it's a pile. There's a lot of things that he's saying here. Shiur oasis atoy v'tfilah shaloim the mispala neged neim Shem oilos mitzachzuchis. This is a whole other madrega. This is with Baal Shem. We learned about it a little bit last time with oasis. Baal Shem looks at the world and sees oasis. Remember we talked about this? When Baal Shem says oasis, he means creation. That's the way he sees everything as a vibration, as a sound. And in the sound is the light. There's the oir. So you can get caught in the sound. You can get caught up. I don't want the sound and light. That's two separate things. I'm saying you can get caught up in the language of things. And like this means this, it means that, or it can sense the oir mitzuchsich where you're connecting to the oir of that. The oir is like the atzilus, the dveikus, the das. That's the oir of the letters. It's AriZal. Shemas. Again, another Torah on that. That we can be a madrega of Ayin Roya, or we cannot be an Ayin Roya. What does it mean? That lo yizichisi. Ratzleim sheyachol lefarsim chidush olam sheniki yitzis tzayim b'leilos. Shein oyers olam nirim. Ki b'chosh haklipas anikol leilos. Goyim l'sheyaf shel shtem yitzis tzayim shepers b'chidush olamas. In other words, what does it mean Laila? In other words, yitzis tzayim means there's no Laila. So right, he says, "Lo yizachishu temitzias b'tzayim b'leilos." Like, well, I didn't merit to see Yitzis Tzayim because I was stuck in the Galus, so I wasn't able to see Yitzis b'tzayim b'leilos. Archa Doshim b'zayim. What is Archa Doshim b'zayim? So b'tzayim was the first one that was b'chadish it. No, he says no. He says this. We talked about this last time in Baal Shem. Baal Shem says sometimes when you want to learn something, read the thing itself. I don't know. It wasn't there. So another conversation. But it's another conversation. We have to talk about this once. When the Baal Shem, some of the Torahs of Baal Shem is you read the words themselves. In other words, when you read it, Arsha Doshim Ben Zayma means, until Ben Zayma was Mefarish, there's a person, there's a Chacham, there's Ben Zayma, but Chacham thought that you don't see Tchis and Beis and Laws, and Ben Doshim Zayma was a Dorish this Pshat. Baal Shem says, read the words, Ad Shadorsha Ben Zayma. The Dorsha Ben Zayma is actually the Geula. In other words, when Ben Zayma came, this is when he revealed. No. That's one time that Baal Shem goes sometimes like that.
Yeah.
Or the Dorsha Ben Zayma, the fact that what is Ben Zayma Dorish? That also Baleilas, right? So you think that Ben Zayma came wrong and decided a new idea that the Dorsha itself is what brought the understanding You understand? The Darsha itself is what brought the understanding that you can read Yitzis Mitzrayim B'Leilos. You understand? The process of process of darshan. You're following the way the Baal Shem reads it. He's reading it very little. What Ben Zayim was doing, he was doirish. What is doirish? Doirish is skulas hadrashah l'shaber klippos. In other words, what's klippa? Klippa means a lack of understanding. Shikha, I don't understand this. But the process of drisha is Geula. So when that's the way. Actually, no, there's a breaking. There's a breaking open of that idea. Him breaking open, by the process of drasha, he created the reality that became this Gala. Yitzis Mitzrayim B'Leilos.
Until he said it wasn't in existence.
No, until he was doirish it. You have to be doirish because doirish means the thing was stuck in the. He broke it open through the questions. That's Zoy Kumtois. Yeah, Zoy State. Yes, mamish like that. Zoy State. Zoy State. It's a big chiddush, but this is the word. The drisha itself, the excavating, the questioning, the drawing for the light through the question, the observing creates the reserved. Yes, but a little different.
It's a big chiddush because it's about Leilos.
Avada. This is but if you understand the personality of Ben Zayim, you understand why it's been Baleilos. Ben Zayim was a person that dealt Baleilos, right? Ben Zayim was not Yotze B'Shalom. Here's a lashon of the. He from the four that was nichnas of pardas. Ben Zayim was nichnas and was not yotze. He was affected. He was troubled. Him and Menazir, we're not sure who died and who went crazy, but one of them. Here's a lashon over here. This is the lashon of Al Shem. Again, I don't want to read the whole word, the whole Torah. Lech lecha. Be more. Is it mansapach? Okay. So yeah, Zeh inyan. Tchias HaMeson. You see it on top of the line? Yeah, lech lecha. So lech lecha, the mansapach, you elevate your mile the tzotzis. Okay, fine. Zenyin, tchias HaMesim, Mashiach, l'soidak das, l'soidak l'mhaba. Oh, this is a loaded statement that Baal Shem is saying. So we're always thinking up until this point, as I come to this, we're thinking that the das, again, this is also very rein the Torah of Baal Shem. We're thinking about the das, that the das of this allows sort of the das is like the key. In order to get to this place, to have a Geula, not to be in a state of Galus Mitzrayim, and not to be in a state where there's the Zohar Ampin and there's no Dibur and everything is working not in the correct manner. That to open up this gate, you need the das. What's the das? The das is that opens up to something else, right? And once the das opens up to something else, then you get the higher connection, and therefore everything else works out. The Baal Shem says that on the very oimiktik level, das itself is it. The das itself is Mashiach. The das itself is Tchias HaMesim. The das itself is Olam Haba. It's not the mafteach that opens you up to have Olam Haba. The mafteach that opens you up, it is. This is the oasis. You understand the oasis? What the Baal Shem says?
That's yichud of the
The
physical.
key itself is the place you're going.
The key itself, the journey is the destination, or the key is not the key unlocks the door. The key is the door.
If somebody's living in a high level of das,
That's Mashiach.
that's
what he said. He's in a state of Mashiach. In other words, exactly. Nafshi Gala. There's a person Geula that when a person has his das, when a person's das becomes revealed to them, like your real das, like what is it really? The Yeshiva das and the real you have to know what your das is. But if you have, look, I just want to show you this. This is a word from the Divrei Chaim from all people. No, some people don't have these oasis over here.
3 copies, so we can check.
Okay. Okay, makar koy das u koy nafshi sho adam makar matzmus nafshi da veloy umad. Rak mo sho adam makar khave sho ro vayz makir. Ulum ein makir be etzem nakshi de simon gufa mundes rak khakh sho vim planen fimon avalim etzem nafshi makar khave ze etzem idea. AriZal das. Heine schon jedem auf Pirika. Etzen auf schöne mit Ducken mit Dois Barch wie alles wird. Kein jedem auf Pirika nusch so rakba von mitis. That what's das? Das ist Dweikes. That's Amunah. So when the Baal Shem says Amunah here Dweikes, Amunah doesn't mean I believe in something. Amunah means I'm one with that thing.
Believing is das.
Yes. In other words, if I say I know something, or I say I believe in this, there's a this and there's a me, and I'm believing this. There's three separate things. What the Torah Baal Shem is saying is that when a person reaches a bechina of das, proper das, correct das, and das is taka Ruach HaKodesh. That's even Chazal said. Das is Ruach HaKodesh. When a person reaches that madrega, that is the Mashiach. That's the Nafshi Geula. That's the Mashiach HaPratish for a person. When a person functions from that place of real das, then your whole life klap. Se klap nicht, but that's loizachish balaylas. Se klap ja, because there's two worlds. There's two things that are happening. There's the external reality. And then there's what, or I will say it better. There's my world, and then there's what I lay over on this world. There's a certain conception that I place on this world, and because of that, I experience things different ways. But it's my choice what I put onto this conception. In other words, there's a world. David created a world, yeah? The world just is. There's no story to the world. Ki'ilu. Where my das projects it, that creates the story. Okay, let's say for example, I don't, it's very harsh to say, but let's say for example, you have a friend of yours from 20 years ago that's going through a hard time. Yeah, I'm not saying this for a mile. I'm just saying that what to understand this, and you feel very bad for the guy. You feel passionate, but you're batzar, the person that's on, it really bothers you. Then there's another guy that you don't know, and you say, I don't want to know about this person. Don't tell me. I don't know about this person. Everyone saw this. I'm not saying I'm just saying this is the way a person normally acts. Because once you know someone, we're using the word das, but once you have a relationship with this person, you have already a story that's connected to that person, and because the story is connected to the person, therefore you feel the sorrows. But for the other person that there's no story connected to, the person's suffering the same way. It's tamazoi. In other words, it does not negate you. The same thing also with all of life. You can take this to the extreme. It's obviously very harsh, but you can take it to the full extreme. Everything that we have in this, we say that. Is it
fair to say that das is a knowing that matters to you?
No, it's just the das. It's the awareness. Just the awareness. The awareness. You choose what you can become aware of. If pain is not optional. Pain is inevitable, and suffering is optional. What's shot? The suffering comes because of the das. What kind? You have das, don't have das. What type of awareness? But it's all in your das that's creating the story. Is creating the situation. And on the other das, exactly. And there's usher with das. So
there's a guy. He tells me he goes every week to the Schwitz. Right? I'm giving you a moment.
Yeah.
I see him in the summer. He's schwitzing away and he's miserable. So why are you miserable? You go deliberately, willingly go into a room with this high temperature once a week, as Parlenda said, and now the Eibishter is giving it to you right out here.
Right, exactly. It's a different. It's the perspective. It's the das. You understand? This is the koyach. So when the Baal Shem, the lashon of the Baal Shem, this is something you have to chew over a little bit, a few times. That when the Baal Shem says "Hutchias Ameis Mashiach Usay Das Usay Dom Haba," he's saying that really das is. It's not das is something.
Get the das, you know what to think.
Yeah, das is everything. Das is everything. Das. If you have das, you have das, and obviously you have to make das is the and when a person has that bechina of das. So that's why das is emunah, and das is Mashiach, and das is yichidish benefesh. You can call a lot of these words is ruach hakodesh. This is when it's more than this state of mind. A state of mind is a very cheap statement to say. It's more than a state. It's not a state of his mind. It's a state of his reality. Not as this is mind. His mind is okay. So you say, guy's living in his mind. He's made no. There is nothing else besides your das. And if you have the correct das, then everything is immediate. Everything is mamash now. Everything that you never need is actually right now. And here, I'm just going to finish off with this last shtickle. This is from the Lubavitcher. This is from the later years. The Rebbe writes like this. But this is something that I heard from him, and I just found the quote. This is very, very strong words. The last page. Yeah. What he says is that you don't have to do anything. You just open your eyes. Why? Everything's right now. All you just need to do is it's a line. You have to open up your eyes. Your eyes are closed. Open your eyes. That means just open your eyes. Everything's here. If there's anything that's a chesaron of anything, it's just because your eyes are closed. Now, it doesn't mean that there's going to be a Geula clawless. We're talking about the Geula practice for you too. In the present, you're talking about Mashiach and Olam Haba. It's going to happen. It's going to be. It's going to come. It's going to be. Everything's right now. It's now. It's now. All we need to do, we need to change our perceptions. We have to change our das. We have to cleanse our ways of seeing things and looking at the world. If we can change our perception and really work on our das and have like a geula in our das,